Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron here, New Life Pentecostal Church, Albany, Georgia. Here with Alex Spooner from Flint, Michigan. He's a junior, 21 years old at Indiana Bible College. And Alex, just want to ask you, what do you think are some challenges for young people living for God today?
Well, I think one of the first and the main ones is being consistent with, what you're supposed to be doing in the church. I'm assuming we're not going to talk about people in the ministry yet. I guess, standing alone. We were driving out to a church to preach, and I looked out, and there was a tree, and it was in the middle of a field, and everything around it was kind of dead, and everything, the crops had been already reaped, and there was this tree in the middle of all this dead stuff, and the tree had life, though. It still had leaves, it still looked very pretty, and it stood alone. And for a lot of young people out there, whether it's standing alone in your family, in your own home living for God, whether you're the only person in your school living for God, whether you're the only one among your friends living for God, the toughest part would be, for me personally, going to school, and being the only apostolic, being the only saved person in the whole building, and standing alone and being consistent and faithful when everything else around you is dead, everything else around you is doing nothing of any eternal good and eternal value. And I think standing alone is probably the toughest thing I think people are going to face, especially young kids.
Well, and how can they live an overcoming life? What are some steps to victory?
I mean, without the Spirit, it is impossible. I think first off, you have to have a love for the Word and a love for truth. We have to move past kind of the feel-good things in church. If you're a young person in church, you got to be moved by the Spirit. You got to have that joy. The camp feelings are the best. Everyone loves the camp experiences, but in order to survive, in order to stand alone, if you're in that circumstance, you gotta have a love for the truth and the Word. You gotta go past kind of the emotionalism. You gotta go past, just that the Pentecostal experience. You gotta be apostolic in your doctrine, and the only way you can do that is if you're in love with the Word, in love with every principle in the Bible. You got to have a love for it, and if you love it, you'll read it, and if you read it, you'll know it better, and when you know it, you can live what you know.
Gotcha. Now, how could parents kind of help their young people live for God?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to not set them up to fail. So first of all, don't when you're bringing up a kid, and what helped me a lot is my parents told me something I couldn't do. They didn't ever make me feel like I was in a box, because holiness and stuff like that is not a box to keep me in. It's to keep the things out. It's to keep the bears and the lions coming after the sheep. It's to protect me. And so I think the first thing is explain to them why they do what they do. Don't just say, hey, do this, and that's just because it's the way it is, because they'll do that for a season, but there's going to come a time when someone questions them, and if all they have is, well, that's just because the way it is, that's not going to be sufficient enough. So when you're raising your kid and you're trying to help them live for God, explain to them the principles that are in the Bible so they know what they're doing and why they're doing it, because if they don't know why they're doing it, they can't really love or appreciate or even explain why they do what they do. So I think setting them up for success and explaining why they do what they do, why they live how they live. I think that's for me, and personally, that was the greatest thing my parents ever did for me.
Man, that is awesome. Any last words you'd like to share? Something you think would be an encouragement to people listening?
Well, I'd have to say, finish what you start. Don't knock the enemy down, and don't parade over a battle won. Go win the victory. Go win the war. David knocked down Goliath. I'm a strong believer if he wouldn't have went up and killed him, his enemy would have got right back up. Don't knock your enemy down time and time again just for him to get back up. You gotta finish the job and kill it when you get a chance.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brother Alex Spooner. God bless you. Live in victory today. In Jesus' name.